out of the nice, safe nursery where they are being nurtured and turned into emotionally healthy individuals ready for a nice, good, stable civil service job when they grow up, and forcing them to go out and play with guns for no real reason. We say that is an awful characterization of what Daniel brought you and what I'm trying to bring you now. Because these children are already in the war zone. They're already looking at emotional damage, and what we are trying to do on this side is give them a chance at having a life in order to deal with that, as opposed to dying and being killed. Firstly, communities who need this. Why it's important that we allow them to do it and get rid of the ban. Secondly, the necessity of organization. Again, why it's important to be part of an army, not just to do the individualized self-defense they talk about. 2 points from Bubba first. Harish talked about we're going to make children who aren't targets currently targets now by giving them guns. We say the kind of conflict we're talking about, you're already a target because you're from the wrong tribe, or you live in the wrong place, or they don't like your tribe having resources. There are all these reasons you're already going to be killed or raped or targeted. We are giving you a means to self-defense which isn't allowed. Secondly, we've been told about we're violating their human rights, and it's going to damage them emotionally. We say on the side that human rights is a spectrum, and that consent and things like that have to be weighed against the alternative harm. And if the alternative harm is being butchered with a machete, we think incurring some emotional damage later from being involved in a military is better than possibly not surviving to see that, or having the emotional damage when you see your family die in front of you. It's enough to say they die otherwise. No. We've been told they're going to lose their childhood again. We say, what's our alternative here? Human rights minimization says at least you get to live, and your family gets to live, and your sister doesn't get raped on our side. That's a good thing. We want to point out that this ban does not prevent bad people from doing bad things in the status quo, okay? Child soldiers exist. The only people this ban applies to are the good guys. It's the guys who care about Western recognition. It's the guys who care about what's going on with their They're the ones who need it. They're the ones who are being harmed by the ban, not the bad guys, not the LRA. First point, communities that need this. We say the status quo discriminates in favor of the worst regimes and the worst militia groups and the most awful people in a lot of these situations. Because it's the people who've worked out men are the ones who are allowed to do the fighting. So we're going to go through the village and shoot every man of military age, and they won't be able to resist anymore. We say it's communities, and this is why they need children, because there's no one else left to fight. And maybe the 16-year-olds are the only ones left in some of these places. And I'm going to take Harish because he seems to want to talk about something.
Okay. So using the logic you just gave us, presumably they now go into these villages and kill all the children.
We think in a lot of cases they're killing the children anyway. We know that in the situations where they have the kill them like that. Carrying on. Okay, we say that in a lot of these cases the children there don't have adults to defend them. I don't have a father to fight for me, so I have to fight myself. We say this is better than you just dying undefended. So we say in a lot of situations, we actually have a different conception of when adulthood, and when specifically manhood, the womanhood you're training to, is reached. We say in a lot of cases in some of these societies, they think you become a man at 13. You go out and hunt at 13. You become responsible for your sister at 13. You are already expected to do the manly job of defending your family. So you feel this obligation. We are not going out and putting a new obligation on them by these groups. We say in a lot of cases, they feel this already and they feel the need. So what's the alternative? The first one is when the rebel groups come to the village to kill my family, I fight back individually in my own self-defense statement I can have. I die. There's one of me, there's a big militia group, I probably can't fire my gun, I'm not trained, I die. Or there's the alternative, that we allow them to organize, we allow them to form militia units, we train them, and they can put up the most effective defense, which can really be meaningful and do that. We say that's a better choice in this situation, because either way, I'm going to go out and fight and die, because I feel the obligation. It's a question of, do you facilitate me in being most effective and least likely to die when I'm defending myself and my family? That's the situation. We say organization is needed and effective. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. We say in a lot of the cases we're talking about the good guys. We're talking about the liberation armies, the armies for representing people who have had ethnic cleansing policies against them, who have been damaged, and who fear losing Western aid if they bring in the last manpower they need. We say because of those guys, the ones who don't currently abduct children, we think they should be allowed to do this if they don't have any alternative in order to allow them to fight for their cause. because they know they need Western recognition, they need Western pressure, and they fear losing that. We shouldn't make them choose between our support and doing what they need to do to save their families. We think that falls on our side. Okay, second point, necessity of organization. We say organization is really important here, because I can't do this alone. And the proposition has admitted that I have a right to personal self-defense. I have a right to pick up my gun and fight if someone's about to kill me. But apparently I don't have a right or any reason where I should receive training, or where a group should facilitate me, or where maybe they should teach me how to fire my gun and use it. They say all those things are not okay, but we on this side say all those things are absolutely necessary. Because we don't think individual defense works in the face of gangs, in the face of militias, or in the face of government troops. We think it is only when we go out and we give them this training that they have a chance and to reach again.
So we created armed militia children. What guarantees that they don't become the gangs which you want to prevent?
We're going to admit a lot of these countries aren't perfect. Like, that is a reason against allowing any of them to do anything. Almost they might do a bad thing with it. We say, we look at some of the groups that are choosing not to do a lot of these bad things at the moment, who are choosing because the West says they're not allowed to, that they don't decide not to abduct people and do these things. We think there's a better chance, especially when we train them, that we can better make them a self-defense force or a group that can defend them. Like, we think that's just really important. We think if there are more problems down the line, we will try and deal with that. But at the present moment, we want to prevent things like ethnic cleansing and prevent rape. We say a lot of the times, the government gangs that are doing this kind of thing have been trained by the government themselves to have good tactics, or by the UN. We know that a lot of the rapes in the Eastern Congo are being committed by troops who the UN have been training and giving bullets to. We say we don't see how you can say a 13-year-old has a right to individually defend himself, but he doesn't have some kind of right, and we shouldn't support his militia, his village, when they form a group and try and resist collectively when he's the only one who can do it. We say that's hypocritical, we're causing this problem, and we need to fix it. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, we've told you why this is right from the human rights minimization perspective, why some communities need this and this is their only option, and why this is something that the only effective way they can defend is through organizing in this way. We propose.
I now call on the first opposition, Anish Nakwalajan from Cambridge 8.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, let's be very clear about one thing. Jordan and Daniel may stand up and say, currently you already have child soldiers. We concede that is true, we concede that is bad. However, they very explicitly are creating an awful lot more. They are finding children and they are training them and turning them into militias. The fact that we currently have child soldiers is not in itself an argument for not preventing us having more. So that's the first point in response to that. Second, all that case says is that communities should be protected. Matty stands up and asks the question, why must they be protected by children? If you want to arm militias, why not arm militias of adult males? In the examples of like Afghanistan, we all know very well there's plenty of men in these villages who probably will be willing, if we were willing to train them and give them guns to take these acts. It's simply untrue that all the men in all villages which could ever be threatened all over Africa are at risk. Further, as I point out in the point of information, if that is true, if armies from I know the Maoists in Nepal decide to go and try and kill any single individual who they might think